It's Jonathan Matoshnik, and the question is, how do you sell lawn care in January and February when there are no weeds on the lawns? So this is a good question. It's similar to some that I've answered in the past. So a couple things to think about. Think about what are you selling here. So you're selling fertilization and weed control. And so the question's really smart in that that may not be the service that's at the top of your mind for your clients, and therefore it is harder to sell. So I'll cover this real quick, but this is something to keep in mind. Is there something in January and February that you can sell that is top of mind to get in with those clients? So for example, I agree. See, January is exactly when you generally need to be putting down the pre-emergent. I realize every market's different. However, client doesn't see weeds, they don't see winter grass, they don't see the problem, so they're not thinking about it when they pull into their driveway or they pull into their business parking lot. But yet, it's imperative that that goes down. The pre-emergent goes down at that time of year. So part of it is a bit of an education process for your client. I will say that you do benefit greatly from the Scotts and True Greens of the world that are spreading that message to some degree, and they're covering a large part of the country with letter mailers and postcards and all kinds of different mailers, and they're doing these things in February. I observe a lot in February, at least in the South, and it varies. So you have the benefit that they're already bringing attention to this for your client or for your potential client. So you have a little bit of an advantage here, whereas in a lot of other services you don't have this advantage. So at some level, clients are being prospects who hopefully will become your clients are being programmed to know that January, February are when these things become important because there's so much marketing going on. And so you, by marketing around that same time period, are kind of piggybacking on that same message, and so there is a little bit more of a awareness on the client's part. So that's one reason you'll see some success. There's plenty of success to be had, especially marketing in February, depending again on your market. I'm kind of relating this to the South. I realize it changes a bit. So in the South, the market would be, depending again on the part of the South, but the market may be that almost everywhere February is quite cold. You can have an early snow even in Texas in 1st of March. So, but March is really when the season starts to kick off. But you've had to put down those pre-emergents in January and February. There's a lot of the larger, more successful companies. And by the way, they're larger and more successful because they actually market. The larger, more successful companies are doing their marketing in January and February, and they're seeing success doing it. And so it works. Now, if we were talking about a service such as lawn mowing, I've done some testing in this area, and it's doable to pre-sell some clients in January and February. I need to do a lot more testing, but I'll tell you that it is more challenging. It's more challenging to sell mowing in January and February than it is fertilization and weed control. So what's the difference? Really, if you look at it without thinking about it too much, there's no difference. The lawn doesn't need mowing, just as the lawn doesn't need fertilizer, it's dormant, or the lawn doesn't need weed killer, because generally the lawns are somewhat clean, just simply because of the time of year, and a lot of weeds have died off. So the difference is the awareness that we are benefiting from the True Greens and the Scotts. All right, so to answer your question, simply a strong educational marketing campaign thought of and developed from the client's perspective. And so not your typical campaign that says, hey, it's time to kill those weeds, or hey, it's time to do a pre-emergent, and here's satisfaction guaranteed, and we'll give you, the fourth treatment free. Well, that's not going to get anybody too excited. It's the middle of the winter. How are you going to get these people to take action? So think about it. What would it take you to get you off the couch, to get you to be distracted from the millions of things that are going on in your life, to actually pick up a telephone and make a call when you look outside the window and your lawn really doesn't look that bad and you're doing something preventative? How many of us do preventative things? Most of us are horrible about changing the filters in our AC units and our heaters and our furnaces, yet we should do it all the time. But most of us don't do it because it's preventative. We put it off and we put it off. That's exactly what your client's going through. So what kind of promotion can you give them? What kind of verbiage do you have to use to give them to get them to take action? So think about it from your perspective. Ask your friends. Find out what they would do. So I believe, first, you're benefiting from the national company, so you can have success here. Second, you need to make sure you have a very strong headline, and fear-based headlines tend to work best, amazingly enough. But they tend to pull well. You can use all kinds of headlines, so you want to read up on quality headlines, and you want to use a strong, compelling headline with a strong, compelling offer. So what are they going to get if they bother to take action now? And what pain are they going to avoid? This is the fear aspect, by taking action now versus waiting to March. So a strong one is that their lawn will not look horrendous come March when all the weeds are taking off and everything's, or in April, whatever market you're in. You want to communicate those kinds of messages. Then what can you give them in the way of a promotion to get them to make a buying decision today and put a deadline on this? So if you're doing a marketing piece in January, you might put a deadline on it for 2 weeks out, and if they buy today, they get $40 off of an aeration service come May, or whatever. You want to think about these types of things. So I'm kind of giving you an outline here rather than just an answer. I'm giving you a little information because you're going to encounter this problem often. And so these are some of the tools you'll use to solve this problem. So, and with everything, when you're exploring and you're testing and you're trying to figure this stuff out, start out with a small area. So think about some neighborhoods where you have success. So think about some areas that are loaded with potential clients that can buy and afford the services you offer and that predominantly buy them. Not neighborhoods that need them, neighborhoods that buy them now. And then develop your marketing, and if you have to, go put it out on doors if your city permits door hangers and door marketing. Mail it to the streets that you already serve that meet all the criteria I just talked about. And try writing a couple different pieces, and you can get them printed cheap in small numbers at gotprint.com. Do a couple different things with different headlines and different offers, different messages, and put out 500 here and 500 there and test it and see what your results are so you can figure out which one works the best. You've got to test different messages, and every market is a little bit different, so every part of the country, so you want to test that. The other thing that I'd strongly encourage that you test and try is that, so again, going back to the conversation that's going on in your client's head, it has nothing to do with their lawn in January and February, at least not typically. They're not too worried about prevention. They think they should do it, but they're not going to get around to it. They have great intentions. They're just as busy as you are. And so think again about what is it that you could sell them that is creating pain in their life. That's how you're going to get in the door. And I've talked about this before. So what's going on in January and February? Well, in Texas, we've got some crepe myrtles that have to be pruned back. Or they don't have to, but it's kind of a common practice. And so we do some pruning, not topping, but we do some pruning of crepe myrtles. And there's a time frame that has to take place. And once you pass that, they really should not be pruning their crepe myrtles, or it's going to mess up the bloom cycle. So we can make a strong case, I guess you could call it based on fear, that if you don't get this done by this time, you're not going to get it done this year. So that's one thing that we'll use to get new clients. Leaves. You've got a lot of leaves falling, so you can do a leaf cleanup. So you get in the door with picking up leaves, and then you sell them fertilization and weed control. So you came in with a completely different service. November, we're wrapping palms with burlap. We can get clients. Other companies don't wrap palms with burlap. We do, so they hire us, and next thing you know, we have all the business. So what's going on in January and February that the client will need you? And get in the door with them on those services and then sell them the other services they need. But in this case, being that it is fertilization and weed control, don't be afraid to try to market that. But work on your headline, your message, your promotion, your call to action. Basically, that's the call to action is basically the telling them what to do, what they're going to get for doing it, give them a deadline to get it done by. Try several different styles, put them out. If you don't have a lot of money, put them out on the doors or knock on the doors, whatever you got to do, but test this and find out what will work, and then you start to do bigger and bigger print runs. That's my very best advice. Thanks a lot.